All good true crime stories start with the 911 call and usually some type of police response. Tonight on the Comm Center, we're live and we're diving headfirst into the chilling conclusions of the Sarah Boone saga. The infamous convicted suitcase murderer gave a bizarre and frankly jaw-dropping mea culpa on the stand during her sentencing. If you've been following the case with us, you're about to see the most Sarah Boone thing you'll ever see. We're going to switch gears and head to Washington, D.C., where President Trump's pick for DEA Administrator Sheriff Chad Chronister has for some reason sparked controversy. Did Trump suddenly withdraw his nomination? Is the media being entirely truthful about who Chronister is? Or are we seeing another case of spin over substance? We'll try to separate fact from fiction. We stand on the truth from experience. Normally, we try to provide you with true crime from the inside as only we can deliver. Tonight, we're live. We're free-forming it. We'll talk about some upcoming changes to the show. Who knows? We might even take your call. All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
City council members have announced their plans to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
Wake up, America. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. It's a TV show on the internet about two best friends who are called by a small town sheriff to find a Vietnam veteran who found out too much about the Buffalo Bills while antelope hunting in the deserts of Tunisia. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher. Joining us is always live for the first time ever. He's not AI, Drew Breezy. He's an authentic police officer, not just a product of ChatGPT. He'll be guiding us as host tonight. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher, creeping up on 10 years of doing that job. I watch with anticipation for February because then I could say it's a nice round number. We're live tonight. What we like to do every once in a while is have a live show for the fans because it's kind of a proof of life thing, you know, especially with AI. They are a little bit worried every once in a while that we're dead. So we're here with you live. But we normally do this after we kind of go through some kind of change or slump. Like we recorded 2 shows back to back. We had the Aldrades on. That was kind of different than what we normally do. And then we had Thanksgiving off and we both ate too much. And we both got a taste of the sweet life of what it's like to not be doing the Comm Center. And so to remind us of how much we love doing it, we're here with you live tonight. Speaking of which, Drew, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was great. It was plentiful and bountiful, and we were thankful. Just like the pilgrims and the other people, the natives.
The pilgrims and the other people. Looks like we got a new member tonight. We got Heidi K is dropping in as a brand new member. So welcome, Heidi.
Oh, welcome, Heidi.
It's always exciting when that happens intentionally rather than just someone buying a whole bunch of memberships and people coming in. Tyler's here. He's one of our favorites from up in Canada. He's dropping $10 Canadian. We always appreciate it. Ben Allen here from Maine. It's been a while. Missed you out there in Maine. Chase is here. Favorite firefighter amongst certain firefighters anyway. Cupcakes is here. She's going to be calling in tonight. I told her what this episode was about. And she's actually the first one who told me that Sarah Boone had indeed been sentenced. So it's going to be great. Felony Melanie's here. She's required by law to be here. Heidi, I've never talked to you before. I hope you call in tonight when we take phone calls later. It's going to be a lot of fun. So guys, there's a lot of ways that you can enjoy the Comm Center. One of them is by calling 848-266-6911. That's 848-COM-911. You can leave us a voicemail that way. Our voicemails have been dwindling. It's been pretty much just
one guy.
Jim from Florida. You turn that off. Turn that off.
Turn what off?
Nothing. You can also enjoy us live on YouTube because that's what you're doing. It's not just flapjack time like old days. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Make sure you share this out with a friend. That's the best way for us to grow on YouTube, which is kind of our primary platform anymore. But if you are listening on Apple, make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review. That's how you can help us. We recently got a review that said we were a bunch of what did they call us? They called us something
Racist.
rather mean. They called us racist or something, which is it's how you get baptized as a correctional officer. It's how you get baptized as a 911 dispatcher. It's how you get dispatched as, or how you get baptized as a cop. It's how you get baptized as a podcaster if you're white on YouTube. So, you know, it's kind of inevitable. It's okay that we got called some bad names, but make sure you leave a nice one.
I mean, I kind of dig the fact that there were 25 reviews. 24 were 5 stars. 1 was 1 star, and it called us like racist Trump idiots, or you know what I mean?
What's funny is this isn't even a Trump-centric show. No,
it's not. Not at all. I mean, so what that tells me is, and it's going to fit right in line. You're going to end up boiling Drew's blood at the end of this thing. It goes right in line with having a back and forth with somebody on Instagram and confronting them with facts, and they get upset and they just try to destroy you in any way, shape, or form. And right in my bio on my What Say Drew Instagram account is host of the Comm Center. So obviously they just figured out it was a podcast, and they went and they took the time to review it. So thank you, Strat_lover, for validating everything that we're doing.
Probably didn't help that on your Instagram it's nothing but pictures of your Trump tattoo. Boy, it's in a weird spot. Also, make sure you're checking us out on Spotify. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review over there. Instagram, you can find us in a couple different places on Instagram, but you can find us on the Comm Center. What Say Drew. And then there's a new one. I don't know if you're debuting that now or if you're saving that for
no. I'm fine with debuting it right now. So I'm kind of all over the place, as you know, on my What Say Drew. I talk about a lot of stuff. I'm not really focused, and I'm trying to create like a content funnel to push everybody into YouTube, and I'm trying to create content that is like shareable. So I've kind of taken to this Drew Crime Official, I call it, and I'm just going to rip true crime stories from the headlines, do a 60-second synopsis, maybe a 65-second synopsis, and blast it out to everybody, just like you see everybody else doing. I will make sure that when there's a 911 call to be talked about, I will talk about that. And I'm going to try to keep up with that every day. And so we're it's literally starting from scratch. It's called Drew Crime Official, one word. And I hope that you will go there and follow it. More importantly, when you see something, if you like it, share it. I would appreciate that even more.
Do you mind if I give them a little bit of a peek? What's going on here?
Yeah, have at it.
Drew and I are not getting along.
No, not at all. We hate
it's inevitable. We dealing with each other last night. He went to bed at 7 p.m. because we were having a debate. A sleepy time for me, he said.
We were on our princess phones. Like I had my cold cream facial thing.
I had curlers, obviously.
Yeah, and we were on like our, like Cindy Brady on our princess phones. I had my legs kicked up, and yeah, we definitely went back and forth on in the DMs. Like, this is why I love John, though, so the world understands. He's smart, and he calls me on bullshit. And I also call him on his bullshit. So together we make one complete asshole. It's not that we complete each other to make a very intelligent human being, but
no. What I did like about that was that neither one of us was really trying to convince the other. It's like we were just going through it, like to have a debate. Like what was the point? Because I'm like, well, I don't even really want to change his mind. Like I just want to tell him what my opinion is. But right. You should know that Drew and I are not getting along, and it spells the end of this podcast. And so what's going to be happening in January is that we're actually going to split off into 2 separate contests, and we're going to be spending 2 separate shows. And in 2025, we are going to battle for your little hearts. That's right. Drew has his little Instagram thing. You can find him at Drew Crime Official. You can find me on my new account, Drew Crime Official 1. And if you're confused about which one to follow the one with the blue question mark or the blue check mark, because that's mine. And then we're going to be doing separate little things here, so there'll be more to find out about that. But Comm Center's not really ending. And I don't think anyone who's watching me right now believes that, because every time I tell you that I'm stopping doing something, you don't believe me. Case in point, the after show, gone forever. It's not coming back. I mean, it will. So there you go. Case in point, I could just never
This
be
is
trusted.
let's just officially consider this the before, during, and after show tonight. There's
live now.
And like, look, I think this is like an end of the year, like a State of the Union kind of thing. I think we can explain a few things. Let me tell you where I'm coming from with this ending the after show thing. First of all, John gets way too much camera time, and I can't stand that. I'm paying by the minute for this YouTube camera time. No, we all know that's not true. We have several different platforms where we can do live events. We can
Where
get
are we
on
X right now, by the way? We're supposed to be on X.
Oh, we might be on X. So we have X. We're X Premier members now. We have Instagram. We can go live at any time. We can go live on Facebook at any time. The way YouTube works is that it's YouTube is not really suppressing your content, meaning mine or ours, John's. What they're doing
That
is,
wasn't a Freudian slip at all.
no, my content with my little partner, who interrupts a lot. So it's not it's not that they're suppressing anything. It's that they're trying to find an audience. YouTube is in the business of showing videos to people to generate revenue, and they'll pass that on to the creator if they find people that are engaged by your content. Now, I could say, like, oh, let me just give up on this thing because we're not finding a great audience. First of all, we picked up close to 4,200 subscribers in 1 year, which is kind of unprecedented. So not necessarily completely unprecedented. For us, it's unprecedented. But so we're doing good. But secondly, we got validation in the form of in two ways. Well, a couple, because like we'll see stuff in the chats where people are like, yeah, I saw that on this show and I acted, I did A, B, and C because I saw it on the comm center and it worked out. Or, like we know what we're we know what we're doing, and we have expertise and we know what we're talking about. We drew validation from the case that one of the cases that John picked, blind squirrel, that John picked in this Hannah Payne thing that turned out to be a 2-month-long series, a saga that we've turned into its own, or we're about to release into its own podcast, right? And we think that Hannah was wrongfully convicted. We went, well, that's
the wrong one. Sorry.
Yeah, we went from A to Z with the Hannah Payne case. Like I went from in the beginning to saying, yeah, she's probably guilty, to no, I know for a fact she's not. John was probably a little bit of the opposite. He probably still wavers every once and again. But I'm telling you, when you see it how we see it, when the facts that we brought to light caught the attention of Hannah Payne's family. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to first of all, elevate the voices of 911 operators and dispatchers around the world. And two, and show their importance within that case. That the Hannah Payne case hinged on a 911 call. I mean, they're saying that the 911 operator gave her specific instructions that she did not follow, and she ended up shooting this guy. So that's the importance of 911, and that's the importance of the show, so to speak, right? So we got our validation in the form of her family getting a hold of our stuff and sharing it out, and we're like kind of welcomed into their universe in a sense, because they're heartbroken that their loved one is wrongfully convicted, in our opinion, and in my opinion anyway, and they are in the process of appealing. And the more the better. The more people look at the things objectively, the better. And I think if you go back and watch our Hannah Payne series, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. It takes you on a journey, and you will probably start with, oh, there's no doubt this woman's crazy. And by the end of it, you're like, oh, there's no doubt this is a conspiracy, and they threw her in prison for no reason. Okay, so we got that one. Then when the Aldradis came on last weekend, if you don't know who Barbara and Drew Aldradi is, Drew Aldradi is a 37-year Philadelphia cop, SWAT guy. His son, Salvatore, was a Mantua Township, New Jersey police officer who was in a shooting and was cleared by the DA's office of New Jersey, or by the shooting investigation team of that works for the DA's office in New Jersey. A new DA came in some 20 months later, took his case that he was cleared from and put it in front of a grand jury, and wouldn't you know it, they indicted him. So now he's facing 10 years in prison, and he has no job, and he has a baby, and he has a family, a mom and a dad that love him, and he was a great cop. He was officer of the year, and there's all kinds of stuff. So when the Aldrades came on and they paid us the ultimate compliment, we've been on X amount of podcasts trying to tell this story. You were the ones that got it right. You were the ones that nailed it. We just wanted to come and clarify some of the things that you didn't know. And I'm glad they did that. I want you guys to go back and watch the 2 Aldrade episodes. The one is the one where we break the 911 call down that John found, because for some reason he found another one that was good. And then watch the interview with the heartbreaking interview with the parents who are like, they're working overtime and working their fingers to the bone and getting on every podcast they can get on for the love of their child, because they know he's innocent. He's not guilty. And I dig that. I dig when people stick up for the people that are being pushed down. And we're going to get to that a lot later in this broadcast. I'm sorry for dominating so much time, John. Oh, not sponsored, but Guinness Zero is what I'm drinking, just so we're clear. But if they want to sponsor us, sláinte.
We're still not on TikTok, just as a reminder. And yeah, Guinness, if you wanted to drink either version of that, delicious without a doubt. So yeah, do follow us on social medias, on your Instagrams, wherever you want to. There's always more. We love it when you follow on Spotify and iTunes as well. 5-star rating and review. Thank you to everybody who's in the comments tonight. It's fun, everyone here. So, as I said, Cupcakes and Cameos reached out to me. She goes, the sentencing is on or whatever, and shucks, I missed it. So I had to go back and watch. And I didn't want to spoil it. So I just found the link from Court TV or whatever that had it, and I watched them all kind of just stand around for a while, and I'm kind of clicking ahead or whatever. And so then get the victim impact statements first, and then Sarah Boone is allowed to take the stand. And something that's very unique amongst certain types of people, narcissists, a lot of those, people that would be so audacious that they would get in front of a camera, and talk because they want people to hear what they have to say. But Sarah Boone demands to be heard to the extent that she would leave a man locked in a suitcase and tell him everything that she's ever wanted to say to him because he's a captive audience. Well, she forfeited a plea deal in which she could be let out of prison for murdering him in something like 8 years. She offered a pretty good deal just to make it over with. The problem with that for Sarah is that she would have had to get up there and said, I was wrong to kill George Torres. That's not within her. She cannot do that. So she realized the trial didn't go her way. It was everyone else's fault but hers. And this is her last at bat. This is her last chance in her mind to save the game. She thinks she's going to go up there and give a performance like her letter to try to find an attorney. I don't know if you remember that, but it was written in all the different fonts and had all the cutesy flowers and stuff.
Yes.
This is her last chance where she's going to go out there and somehow the judge is going to be like, you know what? You're guilty of murder. I'm setting you free. Like she just thought that was going to happen. So I watched it through a couple of times. I broke it all down with some thoughts, this so that Drew can kind of knows what I'm thinking as we're going. But Drew, I encourage you to stop it anytime you want to just say what you think about what she's saying, because she says some pretty interesting things up there. And I didn't format it correctly, so all the text is at the bottom of the screen. Do you mind if we hang out on the side?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I know that you hate that. So
I had a lot to say.
Say again.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
You just want the screen to be full. Is it full enough for you?
It's never full enough for me, dude.
I
just press play.
I think this is the wrong one. Let me load up the other one real quick if you want a flapjack. It'll just take
okay. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Delicious Cigarettes. That's right. just rip this pack open, light up a smoke, and blow smoke in any woman's face. She'll follow you anywhere. That's right, cigarettes.
This is how you could tell that we're live. No, well, you know what happened is when I ran it through the encoder, for some reason it clipped off all of my text. I have no idea why it would do that. Can you think of a reason why it would do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it just saved as the wrong form, not format, but like the wrong, like 16:9 versus.
All right,
4x4.
I'm gonna try something here. I'm gonna load up a real damn big file, and hopefully I don't crash StreamYard. So this is the one that hasn't been compressed. We'll give it a shot.
I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I didn't really know how to put it on paper.
Just a reminder, she wrote a letter to her defense psychologist that was 74 pages. That was her life story. So Sarah, you know, the old saying is brevity is the soul of wit.
I didn't know how much I could say or how little I should say. So what I have here is, like I said, an edited version. But I would like to read the more important parts that I feel that everyone should know that wasn't said in my actual trial. And on top of what I have on paper, this is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So I wanted to read this, and then if I may, I would like to address everyone in my apology on top of my statement.
You may proceed, ma'am.
So she got a written thing, and she's going to make a free-form oral statement. The judge is just like, get on with it. Because you got to remember, this judge has been putting up with this for 4 years, got sick of her lawyer shit. He knows this is the last day he has to work on this case. And he
outstanding
wants to go.
Judge, by the way. Judge Cranick.
Yeah, Judge Michael Cranick, great judge.
Kintu Sukuroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. It embraces flaws, weakness, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is a part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kintu Sukuroi. In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable.
Did she just blame infamy?
Forgiveness is not.
I would say she blamed infamy, but she did blame the judge who's about to sentence her for the rest of her life, either free or in prison. Basically blamed him twice for what's going on.
Right. She kind of blamed the family sitting probably, she could definitely bounce a golf ball and hit the mother in the head with it.
Oh, they're there. They just got done making victims impact statements.
Yeah, the daughter's was kind of tearful, and the sister's was bad. Bad in a good way, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense.
It was moving, is what it was.
It was moving, and also the judge, yes, that is right there. And by the way, we'll represent social media if that's what you want.
I know. I wanted to ask the Comm Center's official position on capitalizing on this. What is our official position on this? I say not sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna ride it like an elephant.
An attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary. Above all, when you let go of blame, misunderstandings, excuses, give up your anger and cease from resentment, this is forgiven. And when you forgive, you heal. And when you heal, you move forward. My goal begins with George Torres, and every time he slaps.
Did you see that look?
Oh, that was insane.
Let's keep going.
Slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together, for wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the walls and doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over, for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement, for kicking them off of the bed and throwing across the room because they were trying to protect me. For threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all of the times their father beat their mother. For all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped. For drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose.
She just blamed him for being drunk.
Yeah, she blamed him for her alcoholism, her drinking problem. So because someone joining just now thinks that like this is her explaining what someone else, this is not a witness. She's going to prison. She's complaining about the guy that she murdered with the guy's family right there. And what is she talking about? How much he deserved to die.
Exactly.
She's listing every reason why he deserved to die. Right?
Like, why would you plead not guilty at that point? Why wouldn't you just say, no, I'm guilty. I killed him. He fucking tortured me my whole life. I mean, look, I hold a little bit of empathy for her because he probably did beat the shit out of her at times.
I believe it. Yeah.
And they probably had this tumultuous relationship, but it was centered in alcohol. I mean, it was just like, you take the alcohol out of it and they probably don't love each other anymore. You know what I mean? They probably don't want to be around each other anymore. And which would mean he'd still be alive and she wouldn't have to make up all these narcissistic, somebody said, what is she doing? Just reading a thesaurus? I mean, look, I had a thesaurus and not only was it great, John, it was great. Go ahead.
It worked well for you. It's funny that somebody mentioned a thesaurus. That'll come up later.
For making me experience what it is to threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece. For threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job. For holding me hostage on weekends my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave. For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested. For destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called. For me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison. For beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe. For having me experience what it means to see stars, like in the cartoons, where a character has a tall lump on their head. I had that too, and many times.
Yeah.
For dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him. For taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car, to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him. For causing me so much trauma and pain, mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to be hospitalized more than once. For destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter.
Oh my God.
Literally blaming him for the shame of murder.
Right.
Not letting me feel safe to live.
She is basically saying, for having a face that I beat the shit out of. Like it just like I forgive him for standing there while I just railed on him and without him moving. I forgive him for that. She's insane. And by the way, mind you, if this is so, we just heard from victim impact statements, which means the family, friends of people that love George, that he's no longer here. They know he wasn't a saint. So you got that. This is her opportunity to say, Your Honor, have mercy. I did what I thought I had to do. The guy was an abuser. I didn't do this intentionally. Like, she could have just easily listed like three, I mean, he did stab me in the leg. And
what she doesn't get is it came down to the original lie, the lie that they were having a good day, that she says all the time, we had our good days, and that we were having fun. She told the cops right away that I think she even said it on 911, we were playing hide and go seek. Because of that lie, because they were playing a game and having a good time, from that, she was never in fear for her life. So she sunk herself with her very first lie, and she continues to not be aware of that. She'll make mention of her good days coming up.
Go ahead.
Oops, I started it over. I need to put that button somewhere else, Drew.
To burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job. For holding me hostage on weekends, my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave. For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested. For destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called. For me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison. For beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe. For having me experience what it means to see stars, like in the cartoons, where a character has a tall lump on their head.
Don't do it again.
I had that too, and many times. For dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him. For taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car, to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him. For causing me so much trauma and pain, mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to be hospitalized more than once. For destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter.
Again, blaming him for her shame.
Not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably. I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was, capable of, and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, then to keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help. All of his siblings, including Pharrell Torres, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of her head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled. I forgive them for caring too late. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the time Sarah tried to, by asking for help from all of us and so many times. Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media.
Oh, you're the Don with the organized crime of social media, Drew.
Yes, we are RICO co-conspirators.
Could you believe she called us organized crime because we had the audacity to take the video that she made, the video of her killing her boyfriend, and showing someone and having the audacity to say, this is gross. It's our fault.
It was based in hate.
It was based in hate, and we sentenced her through our own anticipation of her being sentenced. Or
by
something.
Pressing play.
Yeah.
Which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. My family law case is the new prey waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from me being made infamous by social media in my criminal case. It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused great oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced successful conclusion.
Oh, you got a successful conclusion, Sarah.
Yes.
Very successful.
Very successful.
Was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying so desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous theatrics, lies, making and taking blood money from my and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes. It's all.
Look at that. She says making blood money from my misfortune, accidents, and catastrophes.
Not George's.
George's murder is your misfortune,
right?
Or your accident, or your catastrophe. My God. The balls on her.
I know.
Over their hands and their keyboards. And even after all that's been said and done, theorized, hypothesized, scrutinized, and blasphemed.
Whoa. Only God can be blasphemed. Are you a god, Sarah? Holy shit. She said we blasphemed her, Drew.
In my case, still no one knows me.
Still no one knows you. You just told us we put you on social media globally and convicted you.
Yeah.
You know, she sounds like, and I'm going to date myself here a little bit. Do you remember when Saturday Night Live in the 90s, maybe? Back in the 1900s?
That's when I last stopped watching, so yeah.
Yeah, when it was funny. And, well, it wasn't even funny in this period, but Marsha. She sounds exactly like Jan Brady, like that woman that played Jan Brady. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bring you down with that.
No.
In the end, I forgive myself.
She forgives herself. I guess that answers the question about whether or not she's God.
Yeah.
Only God can forgive you for murder. I mean, yeah, the rest of us can kind of get over it, but the way that she's talking about herself being blasphemed.
Is it true that she has a prison tattoo across her chest that says "Only I can judge me"?
Only I can judge me. You know, I worked in a prison 6 years and never saw that. You know, it's amazing. Only I could judge me. She said that earlier too. She said, I forgive myself, but she said, in spite of everything that everyone's done, only I know me. No one knows the real me.
Right.
As if we haven't seen enough.
Yeah, we don't need to know the real
not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave.
Okay, just to clarify here, because we talked about her a little bit. She's forgiving herself for not being stronger sooner, for not being more brave.
Vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. For being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends. I had nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was
That right there, when my wife and I were watching this, and I snapped my head and I said, if she had never been hit before, the first time she was hit, she'd have been out that door. Right? If she, so like, because we as a society are like, oh, we got to have mercy on these domestic violence victims because they fall into the trap and they do this and they do that. But that's after a cycle of abuse, and that's after growing up in an abusive home, more than likely. And there's a ton of sympathy and empathy I have for people like that actually do, fall into the prison of domestic violence, and that's all they know, and they don't know how to break the cycle, and they just make the excuses. She is not that, and she just admitted it. She just said that she never grew up with it. She never experienced it until she met this guy, and she had every opportunity. You know what she could have done, John?
What's that?
She could have said, okay, hide and seek. Ready? 1, 2, and she could have counted to 10. And when he went off to hide somewhere, she could have walked out the door.
She could have. She could have outwitted him.
Never would have known.
Or she could have left and then called the police to go unzip him. That would have been fun for a cop.
Well, no, I mean, like, so that's later in the relationship, obviously, when she left him in the suitcase, because she made the argument that, like, this is the Jack in the Box. Like, if I unzip this thing, he's going to get out and kill me. But you're exactly right. Like, okay, if that's the case, just kick the Jack in the Box outside, lock the door, call 911 and say, there's a green suitcase on my stoop. Somebody needs to come in, unzip it, and arrest this guy. But she didn't do that. She just left him in there because she was shit hammered. And that's, she still won't admit that. She still blames him for being drunk.
We covered this on when it was day 4 of her trial, and they showed all the other videos because she liked to videotape him being humiliated. She did that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not an isolated incident. And what we all really uncovered that day on day 4 is that although she has symptoms of intimate partner violence, she may be the perpetrator. Everything I saw of George that day, except when he was destroying the TV, Hila was like a kicked puppy, and she was bringing him to heel all the time in these videos. I'm not saying that she didn't get punched. I'm not saying she didn't get stabbed, but she was, I mean, there was another episode where the cops came in to arrest him, and he's just like, I'm wrong again. Whatever happened, it's my fault. Take me to jail. That was, he, like I said, he was a kicked puppy much of the time. She was the aggressor. And it matters in these cases who the predominant aggressor is. True.
Yeah, it does. And I've dealt with this in my career. I mean, like, you could, first of all, this guy's 100 pounds. Literally, I think it is the time of his
103.
Yeah, 103 pounds. But secondly, there are people that accept, or their default is jail. Like, they accept that. Like, I used to use this example all the time. I did a corruption case one time, and the guy, he started getting promotions within the county office, and he was taking in a lot of overtime. So we ended up charging him for stealing the overtime money and stuff. So he got on the phone with his mom on the jail phone calls, and I'm listening to that, and he's saying things like, well, I mean, I moved from the trailer to the house because of the money. I can always just, like, move back to the trailer, and people just default to their low. And what he's saying is, like, I'm fine with being in jail. I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like, they're not striving for anything beyond that. They're like, I had this house and it was fun while it lasted. So I'm going to go back to the trailer now and everything's going to be just fine. That's where I belong, basically. And that's kind of what he was saying when he was talking to that cop. He's just kind of like, yep, you're not going to get an argument on me. I slapped her, and let's go. What do we need to do? Like, I think they went up into the bedroom and woke him up even.
Yeah, he knew what was going on. It was and both of them had been arrested multiple times. I mean, it went on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe why she blames the police, because they didn't stop it.
Right.
Raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse.
Wait, were you raised to believe that murder should never happen? No excuse?
I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to
That's one of her commandments.
save myself, my son, my dogs, home and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since. Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time. If not, the great possibility I would be ended as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am, endlessly, and that I never stopped loving him. In all of it and still. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and all night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters. I wrote his family and his daughters, apologizing for asking for their forgiveness. But due to fear that my life or sons would be jeopardized, I did not send.
Just to be clear, she wrote apology letters to the family. She didn't send them out, though, because those apology letters could be used as written confessions from her. So she felt sorry, but not sorry enough to take that accountability and send those letters out, which I admit would be a really big thing. You would have to be a big person to say, you know what, I did this and I'm sorry, writing those letters from jail. But she's saying I'm a big person for writing them, even though I didn't send them.
Right.
And you're not.
I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Please forgive me. Almost everything reminds me of him, seeing my stab wound especially every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me.
To everyone on the planet.
I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward.
If she had started with that, and that was like,
and stop mentioning you're stabbed.
Like, I didn't go to the tip of the iceberg on this one. I'm giving you the edited
you
version.
To go a few more tips.
Like the first 6 pages, I'm going to eliminate. Let me just read you this page 7.
You want to
forgive me?
Just wonder how long the first version was that the judge just didn't allow. She walks in there with 74 pages. Like, guess what? We're locked in, and he's just like, no, you could say 5 of these. Oh my gosh.
My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long. For second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope, always, to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive.
Unless you're Jorge George.
In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this.
In my soft-spoken conclusion, you cannot characterize yourself as soft-spoken whilst speaking.
In my brilliant and
In
soft-spoken.
my brilliant summation, which is as follows.
I'd be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died. How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor.
You're a hero, Sarah.
Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke oppressors, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Isaiah 1:17, all-encompassing, protect the abused.
I got to stop this here because she's quoting from Isaiah and she's representing the faith. And I just have to step in here to say that the Bible teaches from front to back that even with forgiveness, there's consequences, right? From Genesis, when we ate the apple, all the way up till Judgment Day, it's all about consequences, Sarah. You found one convenient Bible verse that says that we all need to go out of our way for the oppressed, and that's true, but you're using it to completely mischaracterize who you are. And I'm not going to preach, but the Bible also did say an eye for an eye, Sarah, and we're not even giving you that, so you are getting mercy. Drew, go ahead.
I don't mean to blaspheme here, but I believe the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not zip thine boyfriend in a suitcase.
You're joking, but it's actually do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Okay.
So she didn't want to get zipped up. So yeah, she did break that one, Drew. Good
The
job.
golden rule. The golden rule from the gold of the vases.
Yes,
Vases.
the gold that makes her even more gold. Even though she said some cracks could not be fixed with gold. Hers can, but George's can't. Is it because he's dead though? I don't know. It's confusing at this point.
Ms. Boone, is that the end of your written statement?
Yes.
Now, gathering your thoughts, did you want to make an oral statement?
I do.
All right, would you do that now?
Yes, please. My statement, my verbal statement is primarily to the Torres family, to the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am and that I did care for George and that I do still love George. I know you know that we had very many good days. And I take offense to the statement of being said that this is just for a moment. Right now with me here in the courtroom.
Okay, she literally just said I was offended by one of the victim impact statements.
Right.
Because that's what got said. It was one of her sisters or her daughter or whatever says, you know, what's going on right now is not just for a moment, but it's going to last for a lifetime for us. They're saying we're without George forever. And she's saying, I take offense to that too, because this is not just for a moment for me.
In front of you all, this is just for a moment. But the moments before that, in order for me to be here, is endless. It's everlasting. The scars that I have on the inside, my outside scars have healed, except for my stab wound. But
except for my stab wound, which I don't know if I mentioned this, but George stabbed me. I don't know if I mentioned that. You think her lawyer told her? It's like, just mention you were stabbed as many times as you possibly can, Sarah. There's no over on that one. Just keep going.
If I were the judge, I would sentence her stab wound separately.
You know, honestly, I'm surprised he's not just like, wrap it up.
This has changed me as a person to see things differently and to understand things differently and to not be weak and just try to protect yourself and forever, regardless of the time that I may receive from today. I forever will have this experience. I forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, in my mind.
Did she say I may receive the time
Yeah,
I may
she said
receive
I may.
today?
Well, you don't want to accept the idea that you're going to prison. She's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, whatever prison time I may receive, because I may receive 0.
Because I'm sure she has in her head that she's like, there's no way the judge is going to sentence me for this.
No,
I've
she
already
still
done
thinks
4
that
years.
the judge is going to finally see. Because remember when she said early on when she was pro se, or earlier when she was pro se, she says, I want the jury to see me for me, the truly exceptional person I am. When earlier on the videotape, when she was bullying George into saying, tell everyone how great I am, that I'm the best, most perfect person ever. She has to have people see her this way. And now she's been given her bully pulpit to go up there, and she thinks she's going to impress the judge who has been very, 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 very sick of her. Do you remember that when her attorney says, like, I want grounds for a mistrial? He goes, denied. And then I'll tell you a second reason. Just denying it was the first reason unto itself. Sarah, you cannot tell this judge, who has been very fair, but he's very sick of it. And I think he's very disgusted by you. But anyway, does she not realize that the family does not want to hear how much she loves George? That's what she keeps saying. You'll never know how much I loved him. Right. To his family.
Well, it's another form of suffering. Like I'm the one living without him.
I'm missing George, even though I zipped him up in a suitcase and didn't let him out, and he died. I'm suffering because I get to go to prison, and I only get to visit him by his ghost in the rec yard.
She is standing on a suitcase of lies.
Yeah.
And my body and my soul, as he and I used to say that we were one soul split into two bodies. This is not just for a moment. It may be for everyone in this courtroom, but when I leave, this is forever. When you all leave, that this is forever. This is forever for everyone here, and
it's forever for you, Sarah.
Those who it matters to most. I am one of those who will experience this forever. I'm sorry.
Forever, ever?
Sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened, the ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry. Words cannot describe. And I hope that everyone can forgive me, the Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. And I don't think that anybody ever understood what he meant to me and I to him. For beating me almost blind, for causing me so much trauma and pain, being all of the bruises from George beating me. Lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, and I ask for forgiveness.
That was a very clever edit.
Thank you.
Ms. Boone, I have just one or two questions, if you don't mind.
Oh, Lord.
Miss Boone, I have one or two questions. First, are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah. My first question would be, am I getting paid? Did you figure that out?
Right. How are you going to pay?
Go on it if you want or not. But this is a unique case, and one of the reasons it's so unique is that you were in jail for 4.5 years prior to your trial. And I understand that when you were brought up as a child that you did have some spirituality in your family, some church, some religion.
Always.
But I understand that you got away from that. Did you have a chance during the 4.5 years to look back at your spirituality?
Absolutely. You know, everyone supposes that this is one of the worst experiences of my life, and it's actually been one of my greatest. If I were not beaten to death, I was going to work myself to death on the outside, and I never had time to get back into my Bible and to pray and to be with the Lord. And I, being here incarcerated, have had time, of course, to get closer to God, to reacquaint myself to Him and realize what it's all about. It's
what better signal to the judge? Like, this is where I need to be.
Yeah,
I need to be with God.
Good, right here. Actually, Drew, if you don't mind,
jail.
Quick interjection. So everybody that came to testify on her behalf as a character witness,
they knew her from the jail.
Every single one of them. A cellmate, a chaplain, and then there was like some random other guy that became her pen pal in Minnesota that was talking about how great she was.
That's a woman.
Oh, sorry.
That's a woman. The one that was having audio and video difficulties. I mean, you know, I felt bad for her because she was humble and she's being very vulnerable and she's putting herself out there. But she was like, no, you just don't know Sarah like I know Sarah. I mean, I have literally known her for, I'd say, a month, good solid 6 weeks. I mean, you don't know.
The thing is, they only all know prison Sarah Boone. Do you know who didn't show up?
George.
Her child. Her child didn't show up.
Her ex-husband, her child,
her ex-husband, her
parents.
child didn't show up and say, Judge Cranick, please let me have my mommy back. He's
yeah,
not
I
there.
mean, so one of the people was a chaplain that, you know, from the jail, you know, and she gave a good statement. But I mean, like, you don't have an outside. I don't know how to. I got to tread lightly on this.
Well, you got to tread lightly, but I'll tell you. I mean, I dealt with prison chaplains. I mean, they want to see the best in people, I guess, is the best way you can put that.
Yeah, one. And two, like, if you were that holy, and basically, but by the way, the chaplain's testimony was basically like, look, all the young ladies looked up to her. She kind of guided them and mentored them. And she was, yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, she's got nothing else to do, but she stuffed a dude in a suitcase and left him in there overnight and he died. And she won't take responsibility for it because that's really all she had to do.
Right.
All she had to do was say, I was so drunk,
but
I don't remember. And I fall on the sword of your.
But she couldn't even get through that part. She had the thesaurus out and the big document for how great she is and how it's everyone's fault. But then when she says her personal statement, I'm sorry, she's just like, there really aren't any words. So, like, you know, words cannot describe, I'm sorry. You know, that's when the thesaurus should have come in, Sarah, for you to say, like, there aren't any words, but I'm going to try to explain the damage that I've done and hear what I'm going to take accountability for, because that's what the plea was. You take accountability of the plea. You say, I killed him. It was wrong. Let me out in 8 years. She could not do that, and she cannot do that now. She does not realize that that is the only reason she is up there. It's not because anyone gives a flying fuck about how great she is or her gold or not even anything that George Torres did. I mean, you could make the case that there are mitigating circumstances in a DV case, fine. But you're here to say you're sorry. This is no longer even about you, or it's not about George. It's about you specifically and whether or not you're sorry. But she made it all about George, and she made it all about the family and the media and the corrupt, the scoundrel detectives like Drew. But she just keeps pushing this line here, and she cannot understand what's being prompted of her. It's actually sad to see that there's no hamster on her wheel right now.
This is all temporary. And when I say temporary, I don't mean by being set free in jail or from prison or wherever else. It means being set free and temporary, meaning that you work for something higher, you work for God, that you strive for your crown to be placed upon your head by Jesus Christ by being said, you have done well, my good and faithful servant. I've always tried to be a good and faithful servant. I was just a servant as opposed to doing all that I can when my family were alive and I was going through everything up to this point.
Hold on. Sarah almost blamed the service and meekness of a Christian attitude as being part of her problem. She said, when I was going through all my family stuff, I was just a servant and I was just meek like a good Christian, but I should have fought back and I should have been more assertive. So she's being asked whether or not she has any spirituality, if she's grown spiritually as a person, if she's gained any insight, things that might matter here. And the only thing she could say is that earlier in my life when I was meek, and when I was having a service attitude while I was, when I was being abused, that was the problem. So she actually just came very close here to accidentally blaming a Christian attitude for the prolonging of her abuse.
I've become so much more closer to the Lord, and it's made me such a better person. And I hope that I'm an example going forward of the Lord's light and can draw many people to me because of it.
Any follow-up, State?
No, I assumed that was the final word.
The state
I
says,
had a lot to say.
Hold on, no, let's not hear it again. We can't go through that again. So the state says, I'd assume that'd be the final word. So he gets up and questions her a little bit, asks her some more things, and there's a few more questions to be asked, and she answers it. And then it's the state's turn, to almost cross-examine her. And the state's just like, no, I want that to be the final word. The state's just like, she's done enough. I don't have to do, as I have been on vacation these past 4 years. I have not had to do anything to make this case, but let's get it over with. I do have other cases pending on the docket. And now, guys,
the state is saying literally, like, there is nothing I can say to vilify her any more than she has already done. Like, the only thing left was like, Sarah, we did find these stack of letters that you wrote to Jesus. So it is proof that you have turned. And she's like, no, that's a guy. That's a guy named Jesus. He lives in Sanford. That's
not surprising. She'd call him Jesus, though, after Jorge was called George. I get the confusion. Now, I know, Drew, we're at an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, keep going.
I want to get Judge Cranick's reaction in this episode, though I don't want to break it down into two.
Oh, no, keep going. Yeah, keep going.
All right. So Judge Cranick says, I took everybody's stuff into account. I listened to all the victims. I listened to the state. I listened to the defense attorney. I listened to Sarah. And this is his response. And I think it's actually rather quite eloquent.
Court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served.
That's it. You're going to jail. You're going to jail. I listened to everything. You're going to jail for the rest of your life, and we're going to give you credit for the 4 years you already did. You don't have to stay 4 years after you die, Sarah. Congratulations. That's it.
I wish there was something cut away and they saw him writing like during the thing. Like I wish that happened. Like, you know, and then his interview when he retires is like, yeah, I had her at 6 years. She scored out to 6 years, but she went into this diatribe that was so.
You know what he
insane.
should have said? Sarah, you had me at tip, and then you're going.
You had me at edited. Like
you're going to prison for life. Guys, she gave up. She gave up a plea where she could have done 8 years. Nothing compared to what she has to face.
Yeah, repair
and she's still willing to do it. She's still willing to be a martyr, though. That's the thing about completing her status as godhood, is that now she's been martyred, now she's been crucified, and now she can go off to her status of being a hero to DV victims everywhere. Because she honestly wouldn't be that much of a hero if she got let out of prison, but now she can be the further put upon, the further tortured hero who stood up for herself, who stopped having a meek Christian attitude, and was more bold and vigilant and less simple-minded and frail and weak. And she fought back, and her only regret is that she didn't kill George Torres earlier. That was the worst plea for mercy I could ever see. Like, if you wanted me to write a play where it's like a hilarious bad joke or plea for mercy, I couldn't have come up with that. It was the worst.
It was the worst. So she'll be enjoying her.
She's going away forever. So that's the end of Sarah Boone. We're not going to bring her back in 2025. I was kind of glad that she got sentenced in December, because that was my favorite case from 2024. We got a lot out of that. I personally got filthy rich off of talking about scurrilously lying about Sarah Boone. So just so you know, I did personally profit from that. Drew, speaking of scurrilous lies, we got into a little bit, but not too much. But just shifting gears, maybe briefly or however long you want, because there's no after show. But Chad Chronister,
yeah,
should be like clear the air about how you met him.
Yeah, I may have known him at one point. Okay, here goes nothing. Let me start by saying this, because I've staunchly defended him on social media. And I realize I'm yelling into an abyss, because the disappointing thing, and this is why I opened the whole show with "We stand on the truth." The disappointing thing about this recent election is that here I thought things were going to get better, and that we were going to stamp out the mainstream media, because they really, really do live in a river of lies. And it's nothing but lies and propaganda, and it's meant to control people, and it's meant to tell people, don't dig any deeper and don't think for yourselves. Just listen to what we have to say and trust us on this one. And I can't stand that, to be honest. Like, I'm an investigator, I guess, by heart. Like, that's what I grew up doing. And So I'll tell you this. Chad Chronister is a friend of mine. I can call him a friend. And I don't know how to put this without sounding harsh, but he at the same time is the reason I left the office. He's the reason I retired early. So I do consider him a friend. At the same time, I left the agency early because I really didn't think that I was going to get anywhere there. And I needed to get out. And part of it was just like information control, like you weren't allowed to speak your mind. And that's fine. Like they definitely have an agency to run, and I get that. And I will tell you, as I'm about to demonstrate, he was surrounded by some people that were definitely not in it for him. And they were definitely feeding him some pretty bad information, in my opinion. At the very minimum, he has plausible deniability to say that's what happened. So however it went down, it went down. But here's the evolution of what happened. So in getting back to this, I was a dispatcher in 1993, back in the 1900s, as Jackson would say. And I did a ride along on the midnight shift with Deputy Chad Chronister. I looked up to the guy. He was a great cop. He was a great street cop. There's a bunch of them that were in this like core that I loved working on the radio when those guys were working. They had a great supervisor, a great lieutenant, and they were just go-getters, and they set the tone. They made it desirable for me to come out and be a cop. And I wanted to go out and be a cop when I was still a dispatcher, and I rode with this guy. And he was very accommodating. And so the one thing I will tell you about Chad Chronister, and I'll tell you why we're talking about this guy in a minute. The one thing I'll tell you about him is something that is very near and dear to me that nobody knows, that not even he knows probably. I strongly need someone to stick up for me at times because I missed out on that in childhood, and something bad happened to me when there was nobody there to stick up for me. So it's rooted in me to stick up for others. One, it's actually ironically in the clan of our Scottish clan is like to succour the weak. That's like the clan motto. It's Securari Miseris Disco, if you want to look at it. It's on the crest. So Chad always, as I noticed through the years, was the cool kid at the lunch table who always said, "Hey, come on, have a seat." He always brought in the nerds. He let guys like me sit at the cool kids table. You know, there's another dispatcher I work with that still works in our office. It drives everybody insane. He is a pain in the ass, very lovable guy though. But you know, Chad took him under wing. And you know, I think there were times when we were mocked, or you know what I mean? Like it wasn't necessarily a mean girl situation, but you know, I'm sure they had a laugh or two of us, but I know deep down inside that Chad Chronister is a great human being. He's a good person. And there are probably things that corrupted him throughout his life and throughout his career. But what they're reporting about is so far off base. It is on another planet. So we go back to, I think, last Thursday night or Friday night. President Trump selects Chad Chronister to become the new administrator for the DEA. This is a guy I've known for 30 years. We went to the DEA school together. We were narcotics detectives together. We've kicked in doors together. We were intelligence detectives together. He became my supervisor while we were in intelligence. I've always kept a social distance from him, which is ironic. I say social distance. You'll see why in a second. I've always kind of kept the distance from him because, and here's something else, you know, in being vulnerable. And look, I have a crippling social anxiety problem that people probably don't really know about or understand. And I was also a notorious drunk. I was a bad blackout drunk. for a long time, for a good part of my career. I've been sober for 16 years, but for the better part of my career, I was a drunk. And that was the means of being able to sit at the cool tables, at the cool kids table. So, Chad had taken me places. He had taken me, we had gone together to baseball games and stuff like that. Like he brought me into his world. And I'm telling you, he was always top notch. He was always a classy guy. And so he brought me into that world, but I would always pollute it with just my drunken behavior because I was an asshole. And I was just like burying a bunch of old pain. So at any rate, later on in life, when I became sober, there were times when he met me in the hallway, eye to eye and face to face, and invited me to places. And I came up with every excuse in the world to not go. He's got a very, I don't want to give too much information out. It's easy to find, but it shouldn't come from me. But he definitely has a large social circle, a very well-to-do social circle. And in my anxiety, I can't risk being around that because I will say something stupid or I'll do something stupid, and I don't want to put him in that position, and I don't want to be in that position either. It terrifies me sometimes. So he was still being kind and benevolent to me, even when I was a lieutenant working down in the communications center. And let me get on this for a little bit. This is why the comm center with Drew Breezy is talking about Chad Chronister, because he's probably cringing if he ever hears this, meaning nobody should be talking about him but him. I'm talking about my experience with him. I'm not talking about him. But he listened to me about the plight of 911 operators and dispatchers. He listened to me about trauma. He listened to me about mental health of cops. He was listening to a lot of people about the mental health thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, I wasn't breaking any ground, but he, or maybe I was, I don't know. But subsequently, even after I was removed from that position, he still visited up there quite frequently. You can still see on social media, if you go to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Instagram page, you'll see that Chad often goes up to the communication center. Again, that's in his nature and in his heart. Everybody is the most important person in that room. It's not Chad that's the most important person in that room. And people have it twisted. People think that he's got this giant ego and that he thinks he's the most important person in there. And he's a charming guy. I see why people are jealous of him. But I'm telling you, the dude is he's got a heart of gold for certain things. So when people, and we have this big election in the big picture, and Trump is elected, we're like, ding dong, the witch is dead. We're going to kill mainstream media, and all of this is going to be put behind us. So, because we're the media now, we're on X, and we have podcasts, and then, so the first thing I read after his appointment is this Gateway Pundit headline that completely obliterates, mischaracterizes the fuck out of Chad Chronister. And it says, I'm not sure if this is I should screen share, but I'm not sure if this is the first subsequent article, but it says, should be disqualified. Conservatives slam Trump's DEA pick Chad Chronister for being a woke Democrat donor, pro-vaccine tyrant who arrested a pastor during COVID. And it's a
pretty big charge, though. I mean, you could see why people who are Trumpists, so I don't necessarily call them conservatives, but Trump's people, they're typically evangelicals. They're typically people who like individual liberty, the people that were reacting strongly against COVID restrictions. You could see why this would rile them up.
Okay. I would agree with you on that. That's easy. But what they're doing is chasing this headline. I don't know if they're reading the article, because there's stuff in the article that is verifiable that they're not verifying, one. And two, why are they contradicting Trump? If President Trump's advisors told him to pick Chad Chronister, why all of a sudden do we need to destroy the character of Chad Chronister? And this is where I have the issue. This is where I have the problem. You're talking about a friend of mine now, and you're not saying truthful things. So it says they call him a woke Democrat donor, pro-vaccine tyrant who arrested a pastor during COVID.
Okay,
when
that's
you
a whole bunch all at once, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
when you put all of that,
when you put it all in together, it kind of stops anyone from thinking, and it just forces them to react.
right,
So I don't know
but
if you want to parse each of those things out.
I do. I want to parse them out because there was a conservative guy supposedly who fed Gateway Pundit some information saying we don't back him here. The GOP doesn't back him here. Well, let me tell you what my experience is with him and the GOP. First of all, he was appointed sheriff. He had to wait a year or two to run a campaign. He ran as a Republican, defeated his opponent. He defeated two opponents, by the way. Ran a second time, defeated two Democrat opponents handily. And then just recently was on the ballot, but didn't have to run against anybody because nobody is going to beat the guy. So, okay, one Republican's opinion on X or on Twitter all of a sudden is a source for the Gateway Pundit and for Brett Cooper, who I normally think is very bright, very intelligent. She's a wonderful, she's an up and comer. She's like ultra smart, but she's falling for it. She's falling for the same mainstream media bullshit that you can twist these facts and put them all together. You can conflate them and put them all into a headline and make them look like Gretchen Whitmer. And because what this is saying is that he is a woke, and what they mean by woke is they quoted in the first Gateway Pundit article that he wanted to hire a more diverse workforce and all this other stuff, and they cited, which is true, by the way, and I don't fear that. It wasn't a full-on DEI program like they're trying to portray it, because that's apparently a dirty word, which it is. DEI, in my opinion, is discriminatory. But what they're talking about is this program where we were hiring more diverse. Well, we were trying to hire more people that started in 2015. He wasn't the sheriff in 2015. So they're saying that he is woke and he's trying to do this DEI stuff. Then they cite him being in this pride parade as the biggest, oh my God, he likes gays. Like, he was in the pride parade. He must be woke. Let me clue you in on this. And this is where John and I had our discussion last night. Yes, he marched in the pride parade. Get over it. What is your fucking deal? What is your big deal? First of all, he serves an entire community. It's called Hillsborough County. He doesn't just protect the straight ones. He protects the gay ones. He protects everybody's, the Muslims, the Baptists, the white, the black, the criminals, the cops, the gay people, get over it. He marched in a pride parade. What is the big fucking deal? It's 2024, for God's sakes. Now, he got hammered for having a gay liaison. I can tell you that if you look nationally, the gay community is normally afraid of police or dislikes police. And I'm painting in very broad strokes here. And his idea of community outreach is to make sure that there is representation there so that they have someone to call directly if they feel that someone in the gay community is being mistreated or there's a crime that comes up and they fear calling the police. They can call their LGBT liaison and she can get it done. I know her personally, first of all. But second of all, there are plenty of gay people in our profession, the same people that Chad and I kick doors in with, the same people that we would jump in front of a bullet for, and the same people that would jump in front of a bullet for us. And we don't give a fuck. I don't care about that. I can't I can't reckon with 2024 being the year when Gateway Pundit readers or Brett Cooper's, the comments section with Brett Cooper, all those people all of a sudden are glomming onto this guy because he's woke, because he marched in a gay pride parade. Who gives a shit? He marched in the Strawberry Festival parade, for God's sakes. He marched in the fucking Veterans Parade. He has a community to protect. What is the big deal? It's really not that big of a deal. Now, if you're ultra Christian and ultra conservative and you're like, oh, and you clutch your pearls over this homosexual behavior, that's on you. He still has an obligation to protect the entire community. He's not just there to be the Christian leader of Hillsborough County. So there's that. I know I'm talking a lot, John, but I got to get this out.
No, it's okay. That's what it's for.
They touted him as being a Democrat donor, and they put a very hazy photo of him, of his name next to donating to the likes of Barack Obama, and I can't think of there were 2 or 3 other Democrats that he donated to. It's him next to the name of a corporation, a holding company. He is the registered agent of the holding company that made the donations to these people. I don't know that he had decision-making authority over where those donations went. I'm just going to leave it at that. Like, you could do your own research, figure out exactly what I'm trying to tell you or what I'm talking about. I'm telling you from experience. I don't give a shit if you think he donated to Democrat causes. I know the guy. I know where he stands, and I know what his motives are. I know what was behind that. And it's probably not as public as, understandably not as public as to why. And it may be, who knows? Now, we get to this pro-vaccine tyrant. They called him a gun-grabbing pro-vaccine tyrant. They say he's in support of red flag laws. Let me tell you something about that. The Risk Protection Order program in the state of Florida is bringing mentally ill people and their histories in front of a judge, and the judge will determine whether or not they are mentally capable of owning firearms. It's very controversial. I get it. I understand that people are like, well, that's anti-Second Amendment, and it's the law. It's what we have to do. And what we were doing wasn't working. This is not like we want to take your we want to take your rifles and, we're coming in your house to inspect. It wasn't even to call him gun grabbing. I wish I could tell you what I know about his guns. To call him gun grabbing is not only insulting, but this is misleading, and you've misled an entire public who jumped on the bandwagon and fucking trampled this guy's soul, basically. I'm sure he's big enough to get over it, but this is horseshit. Because they also said that he arrested a pastor during COVID. That's true. The first couple months into COVID, when nobody knew anything, our agency is big enough, by the way, to have a medical doctor on staff. He was getting advice, I'm sure, from our medical staff. He was getting advice from his executive staff. And he was probably trying to sort through things and figure it out just like everybody else in the country was doing. They arrested this guy, and he held a press conference. I think that he learned from that mistake. I think it was a mistake for him to do that. But I also think that he learned from that mistake. And I witnessed him on TV or on YouTube somewhere go before this congregation at the invitation of the pastor who he formed a bond with, because that's who Chad is. And he gave the most tearful, like, choked up apology to these people. Like, this is not, I don't mean, like, I meant nothing by it. I did not, I made a mistake. and he gave his apology. Do you think that's in the headline anywhere? He made his mistake 4 years ago, but the apology never made it. The apology never made it to the story. And what's the other thing? They call him pro-vaccine tyrant. Okay. I think it was about a year into COVID. And I'm telling you, I was middle management at this agency. I understand the inner workings and the memos and all this other stuff. And I'm going off of my memory of how this whole pro-vaccine, let me be very, very, very clear with you. There was never a mandate. There was never any jeopardy for any deputy sheriff or employee that didn't take an experimental vaccine. Never. There was a memo that came out that basically said, if you choose to not take it, that's on you. We can't cover your sick time, though. If you use this, if you get the jab and you get sick, we can do something with you. From what I understand, and I could be way wrong about this, from what I understand, this was more of a workers' comp thing. So you would be covered if you had the vaccine. If you hadn't had the vaccine, you got sick, just like anybody else. And, you know, so even the people that are like, even the people that are anti-that, the anti-shot people, they're like, well, it was just a cold. You know, it was just a flu. And it was. They're exactly right. So why is it just a flu, but all of a sudden, because this guy is saying, hey, man, if you get sick with the flu, you're going to have to use your own time. Why does that make him bad? I don't understand that. He followed medical advice. Nobody knew what they were doing at that time. And by the way, if you would look at any major law enforcement agency in the country, if you would look at any major corporation in America at the time, I'll bet they were doing the exact same thing. Some of the bigger agencies in the United States were saying, oh no, you're going to get the shot or you're going to be fired. He never did that. He followed the DeSantis model to a T. He did what there were, and I'm telling you, I was there. I was handling some of these issues. Like, you know, we would field complaints about, you know, this business is open, they're a restaurant, and I know they have more than 30 people in there at a time, and blah, blah, blah. And we would just deal with it because we knew Governor DeSantis was not going to take any action. We knew that we weren't going to go in there and shut their business down. We knew that we had to say something to the people just because they were being noticed. It wasn't like we were covering up for anybody, but times were very, very different and times were very difficult. Then the last thing I want to get to is they say that he let the BLM protesters run amok. There was a pretty intense incident. Again, he was a brand new sheriff at the time. I'm not making excuses for the guy. He speaks for himself. I will tell you this. They paint this picture that they took their protest to the Orient Road Jail, to the gates of the Orient Road Jail, and were trying to break into the Orient Road Jail, and they were jiggling the gates at the Sally Port. And they're saying that they were committing some kind of destruction, or they were talking about that in the article. And I'm telling you, I was not there as in at the scene for it. I know firsthand from somebody that was making the phone call to either the assistant state attorney or our legal department. They were looking for a charge, any charge, for those people. All we did was we sent a couple deputy sheriffs out there. They settled down, they stopped rattling the gates, and they left. There was nothing to charge those people with. If we put them in jail, we were violating the same constitution that they accuse him of violating with these shots and these fucking gun grabbing bullshit. I am just so disappointed that we have created our own echo chamber again. We just beat the echo chamber. We just defeated The View. We just defeated Joy Reid for doing the exact same thing. Now they put out quarter truths, or and by the way, when you're me and you stand up and you say, guys, this is not. I know what you're reading, and I know it looks bad. Here's the truth. They fucking come from me. Like, I don't care. I mean, the end of every like back and forth I have is I'm going off experience. You're going off of a 3-minute video that some 26-year-old homeschooled girl fucking put out. I'm not trying to like throw heat at Brett Cooper. She's like I said, very, very intelligent. I'm actually a fan. She got this wrong, and the Gateway Pundit got this wrong. So what happened was he put out a statement. Sheriff Chronister put out a statement that basically said, hey, look, I'm going to withdraw my nomination at this time. I got some work to do left in Hillsborough County. Absolutely true. I still say, me personally, if I were in his shoes, which I'm not, but me personally, why would I leave here? I'm the king. And he is making a huge difference here. By the way, we had a full-on woke, Soros-backed prosecutor by the name of Andrew Warren, and he led the charge. He led the charge to inform Governor DeSantis what was going on with our prosecutions and what they were doing. Next thing you know, Governor DeSantis holds a press conference on our soil at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and says, I have fired Andrew Warren. I know he's an elected official, but I have removed him from his position for not doing his job. That was Chad Chronister doing that. That's your woke fucking pro-vaccine tyrant who arrested a pastor during COVID. You guys got this wrong. You all got this wrong. And in the process, it's personal to me because you trampled on this guy and he didn't deserve it. He does make he makes decisions that I would not make, that I don't necessarily always agree with. I mean, I would be a fucking major or a colonel there if he made the decisions that I made, but I'm not. I'm just some fucking fat podcaster right now. But he makes decisions that are like, this is not going to go over well. But let's reframe that for a second, John. He has the balls to make decisions that are not going to go over well. And he always comes out ahead. And there are times when he got it wrong, and he'll tell you he got it wrong. And there are times that he got it right, and he'll let whoever else take the credit for it. Fucking Gateway Pundit. I'm sorry for all the cursing. Brett Cooper. Daily Wire, if you're still in on this, I know it's a moot point. I know he put out a statement saying he withdrew. Trump the next day put out a statement saying he didn't withdraw. I didn't like the way he talked to the pastors and my supporters. I pulled him out of there. Okay, look, normally I'm okay with the bravado of Donald Trump. Chad Chronister is the sheriff of 1.3 million people. You didn't need to face fuck him like that. That was a bad move. And I consider that a stain. The president-elect of the United States just lobbed a grenade into the lap of the sitting sheriff of one of the major counties in Florida. And for no reason, for no good reason. I mean, if they had a fight over the phone or I don't know what happened, like, I'm not saying that happened whatsoever. I have no clue what happened. I'm just saying hypothetically, if something happened between those two and then he's like, okay, fine, I'll just withdraw, or Trump said, you're fired, and then he put out his statement real quick so it didn't look like he was fired, or I don't know what happened. I know he didn't deserve a grenade being lobbed at him by the president-elect. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. The guy's doing a great job here as the sheriff. Everybody downs him for because if you look around Hillsborough County, every building, every car, it says Chad Chronister, sheriff, and it drives people insane. But let me tell you, let me let you in on a little secret. it's not only legal, it's free campaign advertising to maintain your position as the sheriff. So it's essentially, John, you walking up to the Home Depot and the clerk handing you a 50% off coupon and you saying, keep your 50% off coupon. I'm paying full price. If I were the sheriff, I'd do the same fucking thing. I mean, I don't know if I would put it on boats and stuff. Like, I don't know the depth that I would go. But people see that as ego. I see that as name recognition. And I see it as free name recognition because he earned it. He earned it by being voted. People aren't there when he's at three charity dinners and has to sit with a homicide victim's parents, and people aren't there for that when he's got to do that in one day, and then the next day he's got 4 more. He's got the farmers calling him, complaining about disputes over livestock. Nobody's there for that. This guy is. He put himself out there to do it. He got elected. You put your fucking name on the deputies' gun belts for all I care. John, I've poured the bucket out. That's all I got. If you got questions, I'll answer them. If anybody else has questions, by all means.
I do have Cupcakes waiting on the phone. She wants to talk a little bit about Sarah Boone, but I do want to ask you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We have discourse without discord here. However, this is your channel.
It's not, but it's ours.
It is. So I got a couple thoughts. First of all, I think you're absolutely right that the media is trying to keep a hand on Trump, keeping a hand on his wheel by saying, that this person is woke. It was probably a very leftist media member who said that because they realize, well, we know who's in charge now, and now we know how to manipulate them. It doesn't take a mastermind to know exactly how to do that, and the media is going to do that. And it's not even just leftist journalists, but also the Republican ones who are never Trumpers. We have to remember Senate Majority Leader John Thune is a never Trumper.
Yep.
Everybody who's really excited about what it means to have Republican domination in Congress is about to be sorely disappointed. Moving on from that, if I could just keep it going for Cupcake's sake, politicians will make public messages, and those can backfire. Case in point, Kristi Noem wrote a book about how when she needed to do this, she put down one of her own dogs. What it was supposed to translate to was that when dirty work comes up, unpleasant jobs, she doesn't delegate it to other people, even though she has the power to do that. And it's supposed to appeal to the rugged individuals who live in the Midwest and in South Dakota. Instead, the rest of the nation took it as a message that she's cruel to animals, or that she's indifferent, or something of a villain, a cruel DeVille figure. When politicians make public messages, whether it's in a book or appearing at a parade, they can feel like that is justified, but they also have to deal with the fallout of that. And that means that people outside of your scope of influence aren't necessarily going to like it. He may have marched in a parade in Tampa, and that may have gone over well in Tampa. But when he stepped up to the post for DEA, then it becomes America's opinion. And some of America can say, well, to me, that's pandering. To me, that's someone who's an administrator who doesn't understand what's going on or what's important in law enforcement, and it's not necessarily telegraphing this virtue, as so often does go on in ways in which are totally insipid and vacuous and not meaningful.
I would love to buy into that, John, but
let me just keep going. I don't want to.
No, but I just like, what other basis do you have other than you're saying his eye is on the gay pride parade and not on crime, but our crime numbers are always down.
Hold on. That's great. I'm not, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that as a politician, you don't get to control what other people think about it. It was the right move for Tampa. It might not be the right move for the United States. Okay. And he's stepping up as a post for DEA, and he's stepping into the world of Trump. He's
doesn't
not just
mean he's going to march in the DC pride.
Hold on. I'm working to something good here. Okay. So, something else that I thought that was funny is that something about the COVID sick time. I got COVID, and then I was told to fill out forms for federal sick time, even though I am not vaccinated. And I said, no, the county will pay for this because I did not believe in federal sick time for that. That's just a personal belief that I didn't like the fact that federal money was being moved around in huge ways. Operation Warp Speed and other things. I wasn't in favor of that. Speaking of tax money, the people's money, is that the money that's being used to put Chad Chronister's name on police cars? You said it was free, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything comes from somewhere. You could say he diverted money out of his budget for it, but the money still comes from the people. Something
Right,
to think about.
but we're still going to write the words Hillsborough County Sheriff on there, right?
You'll have to give me the line item receipt of whether or not putting Chad Chronister on there costs any more taxpayer dollars. Also, many sheriffs did not betray the Constitution and arrest pastors. Many didn't. Many saw this moment of crisis and confusion.
Pastor, not pastors.
Pastor, you're right. One, I don't mean to inflate it, but there were many sheriffs who did not do that. And my final question for you, this is the only thing that matters, in spite of the fact that you and I don't see eye to eye. Was he qualified to lead the DEA?
Yes.
Okay, then I can get past a lot of other stuff if we could put someone in the position who's qualified.
I have confidence in him. I have that much confidence in him. One, two, he is objective driven, and I know that President Trump is someone who's going to lay out objectives, and he is somebody who has known, just like I has worked with or known Pam Bondi, who's about to be the Attorney General, for over 30 years now. And if she's the boss, so to speak, he could carry out those objectives. He has a history of listening to his advisors. I just laid out the argument. He's not always correct in doing so, but he's also somebody who can make a decision and has made decisions, very tough decisions.
And when you're a cop and you're making decisions, if you're a good leader, you're going to make bad decisions. Just like Brett Favre or Jameis Winston, you're just going to throw that ball. I mean, sometimes it's going to get intercepted. Why don't we bring on Cupcakes and Cameos? Because she has waited for a Com Center record 34 minutes.
Bless her.
Cupcakes did not take her own child to Taekwondo tonight to be here.
Oh.
So a child has suffered plus 34 minutes. Cupcakes, do you want me to replay the video? Because I could do that for you if you want to get back to your talking points, but you have the floor, ma'am.
Oh no, the sad thing is like I made notes and I still don't even know where to start.
Well, she gets up there and she blames the Torres family. She blames George for what he did. She even blamed Orange County Corrections. That one blew me away. Like, really?
Right. They were in on it too.
Not only does the woman think she's God, she must think she's Confucius too, because like the first thing she starts off with is that whatever that broken pottery fixed with gold, like who even cares?
I don't know, but when she started that way, I face palmed. I'm like, oh my God, this is what we're going with.
It's like, I think when, for that short amount of time that she was pro se and they were like giving her internet access for like, certain hours of the day, I'm pretty sure she was just looking up stuff like that. I don't think she was actually even looking at anything with her case. She was just
I believe you.
What can I throw in a statement?
Her legal research was at one point she had copied and pasted the Bill of Rights, which is what people in college who are pre-law learn their first day. They have to like memorize that the first day. And she's sending that to the judge like, this is my rationale, the Congress shall make no law. And like, that's supposed to impress a judge. Go ahead.
So, I mean, that letter to the judge was what, like 58 pages long? I imagine the one she was going to read was probably 77 pages long.
It was insane.
Yeah.
I bet she was edited today. I bet she was told that she could not have the court's time to go on all day.
Oh, I'll bet her attorney got a hold of that. Her attorney got a hold of that thing. It was like, you cannot say that. Like that was the tame version. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And, which I know y'all didn't really go over as much, like the victim statements and like the statements for her or whatever. But the woman saying that Sarah offered to give her a kidney. Okay, first of all, who would want Sarah's kidney?
Yeah, her organs are pretty well used.
Yeah, who would want that diseased, shriveled up kidney? Like, you would be better off just not having a kidney.
My wife pointed out, hell yeah, she's going to give up a kidney. She doesn't need it. She's going to prison for the rest of her life. She doesn't need it.
Exactly.
Do you remember, Drew, when she got arrested and she promised the detectives never to drink again?
Like she's making, like she's making a deal with God. If you get me out of this, I'll never drink again.
I did say at the end of her, when my wife and I were watching it, I said, and I want to thank the Comp Center because they got it right.
I wonder if part of me does wonder, like a lot of people covered this, and I watched some other people's material on it and it was good, but I wonder if somehow we did come up. I just want to believe that Sarah Boone has seen me just incredulous at her. I would hope so.
The podcast at a minimum. We have a separate podcast, a separate Sarah Boone podcast. So
we do, and I have to plug that, of course. You can go listen to Death by Suitcase, a whole series on that, which this was before Sarah Boone's face became more famous, and we were trying to sell it with female appeal. So sorry, it doesn't have an actual picture of Sarah Boone on it.
Like the other, one of the other things that kills me, and God, there's many, but the fact that, she tries to get into all of this religious talk and stuff like that. And then she goes on to say how what happened to her is one of the greatest experiences of her life because it brought her closer to God.
She didn't have time before.
You are literally, it's like she is literally reducing George to a catalyst in her hero's redemption arc. That's how she sees him. I'm just I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about that other than literally she thinks she is a superhero in a novel, and he is the thing that brought her back to life and gave her power back or something.
She referred to this at one point as her adventure when she was pro se. She was talking about how she needed people to see her on this adventure. I'm like, you mean misadventure, right? But she still thought it was going to be her final ascent, that she had to go through this final test, this final crucible, and that she was going to come out, as a nice piece of pottery, and that everyone was going to see how perfect she was. And I've never seen anyone with a total lack of insight. Like when you watch The Office and you see Michael Scott, this is a whole other level though, because she can't understand just how she comes off to people at all.
And I said this in the chat too. If I hear about those disabled dogs one more time, I'm like, she thinks it's going to get her sainthood from the Pope that she, adopted to a blind dog and a deaf dog. I'm like, I adopted a 3-legged cat at one time. I'm still waiting on my sainthood.
Yeah,
that was 16 years ago.
Well, the amazing thing is that she treated these animals so well, and she has such a heart of compassion for these animals. But a human being, she will leave zipped up in a suitcase, which is the most grotesque and terrible way to kill someone that you proclaim to love. She wouldn't treat an animal that way. She wouldn't lock up her dog or her cat in the suitcase. She locked up George though.
Yeah,
John.
Oh my God! And his sister getting up there and saying that when she goes on a trip or anything, she can't bring herself to zip her suitcase up all the way. I legitimately started crying. I don't normally cry over stuff like that, but I was legitimately tearing up and sniffling. It's stuff like that. We as people that are interested in stuff like that and stuff like this, you don't really always stop to think about small things like that could affect, the victims' families or just the victims themselves as their survivors. Something that little as not being able to zip up a suitcase because you think of your dad dying in a suitcase.
The daily reminder, she's going to deal with that all the time.
That feels terrible.
And not to be glib about it, but can you imagine her at an airport? I mean, that's got to be terrible, On the carousels and everything.
Everywhere. There's no way. She probably can't go to the airport anymore. I imagine she probably drives everywhere she can.
Yeah.
Drew,
go ahead.
John, are we the metaphorical pets of Sarah Boone? One's got good ears and bad eyes, and the other's got bad eyes and good ears.
I was blessed with perfect vision, but I don't know.
I think
all I know is that I did profit personally from her pain out of the story of her by mischaracterizing her adventure as a murder trial. I was way off base. Anything else, Cupcakes? Any other any last bullets to fire into this case before we finally put it out?
The fact that she says that she remembers him, especially when she looks at her stab wound, like the utter audacity.
Yeah.
Like
I'll always remember him, especially when I see what he did to me. Do you see how even remembering him is through the context of herself?
Yeah. And then, she talks about how like she wants to be, an advocate for domestic violence survivors. George was a domestic violence victim too. He just didn't survive. And you did.
Well, she's only an advocate for survivors. She's not an advocate for people who died.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And of course, she always has to throw in there, even then, that it wasn't intentional. Like it's going to make anything better.
That's something I would have said as the state. So it's important for you to advocate for victims of domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence. Always is what she would say. Like, do you think it's important to advocate for people who've died of domestic violence? Never. That's probably what she would say.
Oh, I can't stand the way she says forever. Oh my God.
Oh,
it makes me want to stab my ears with a fork.
And at one point she said she described herself as gracious. She meant to say gratefully, like she was saying thankful, like she was thankful for something, but she said gracious as though she's the one who is full of grace for others. But I just thought, I don't think that was a slip of the tongue. I think she sees herself.
Humble.
Yeah, she's humble and she's meek. Yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm flabbergasted by the fact that that all three of the psychiatrists and psychologists that they had on this case, none of them actually diagnosed her as a narcissist. They said she had narcissistic tendencies. And
well, it's because none of them wanted to spend the time with her. You have to spend time with her to get that diagnosis, and no one wants to be in a room with her too long when they don't have to be, because she's just going to jail. She's going to prison either way. What does it matter if she's a full-blown narcissist, right? If anything, the diagnosis would have let her off, though, because every time you get a diagnosis or a label for something, it's some degree of diminishment, right? Well, Sarah can't understand the feelings of other people because she's a narcissist. By holding off from that diagnosis, we're like, no, she has tendencies, but she's still capable of empathy and understanding that she hurt George. So I'm glad she didn't get the diagnosis.
And then the chaplain talking about how like she's shown personal growth and blah blah blah. Well, none of us see it. Like none of us see it. And she's talking about how she, helps like guide and mother the other inmates and stuff and blah blah blah. Well, she probably can't be as big a bitch in jail as she was in real life because she's not big enough to back it up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, she's probably gonna try to make people like her because she's not gonna be able to, do her coupon or Karen type activities like she's used to doing on the outside. She's gonna have to try to make people like her.
I don't think it'll be as easy for her in prison either, because people in jail, they tend to be in a moment of acute crisis, right? They were just arrested. They're looking for a short amount of time. Once you're in prison, you're post adjudicated. You're usually pretty well settled into what's going on with you. You're usually doing years. And I think that, looking out for support from some other woman there is not necessarily going to be as easy for her in prison. I think she's going to find hard people when she gets into prison, and I don't think it's going to work out for her.
Oh, she's going to have to find a big girlfriend for sure.
Oh my gosh, you took it there. Anything else? She's going to be with Large Marge.
I will have to say, like, that one point in her whatever testimony, essentially, that she made where she's like, and still no one knows me. We don't want to.
I know we've had enough.
We don't want to know you.
We've had enough, but even still, she says, and still no one knows me. That was at about halftime in her little show. That was the intermission.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the thing I said about like coupon or Karen, can you imagine being behind her in that public? She probably had a coupon she was trying to use on her, bottle of wine that her and George were getting, and it didn't work. I just can't. I can't with that woman.
Yeah. You know what's amazing is there was an outburst when they were showing the video of George calling for help. How could there not have been an outburst during that? I know a member of the family did leave during her testimony on the stand.
I think it was his mother, but I'm not 100% sure.
She was back in for the sentencing because she was seen crying, obviously with gratitude that Sarah was going away. But
I watch a different channel. The guy's called The Lawyer, and he actually went and he was actually like out in the audience, which he lives in Florida too, Drew. And he was actually out in the audience at the sentencing. Yeah. He was in the audience at the sentencing, and he said that some of the family members actually got up and walked out while she was giving her statement. And I'm like, I don't know how they didn't all get up and walk out. But he also said that he was actually sitting directly behind two jurors, but he didn't know it until after the fact that they were jurors or whatever. So at least two of the jurors came to watch her spew all of the craziness that she decided to spew. I don't know.
She was a sideshow for sure, and we've treated her that way. I mean, when I prepared this, obviously I was completely irreverent. This is a woman who's actually going to prison for the rest of her life, and she's a murderer. And to me, she's a joke. And I think that is really the best way to treat her. Not as a serious person at all. Like, she has endured some bad stuff, but so have we all. And she denied George the same process that she got to exploit. She enjoyed it for 4 years and dragging it out. George got a couple hours in a suitcase and he was gone. So she's a joke to me. She's going away forever. This is our last episode about Sarah Boone. And if she ever hears these words, Sarah, you are a joke to me. And I think you're an incredibly bad person. And my only sorrow about you is that you will never realize, no matter how many people dish on you and dog on you, you are incapable of realizing that you're the monster.
Oh, she is 100%.
All right, Cupcakes. Anything else?
Not until she's compass.
No, I think that's it.
Thank you for neglecting the child for us. We're very pro child neglect here, so thank you so much.
The husband has him. We're good.
Okay, I'm glad you were clear on the record. The kid's being taken care of.
Yeah, good luck on the
thanks for dropping in. You have a good night. Okay, thanks for being patient with us.
You too.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Cupcakes, thanks for calling in. I only have one last piece of business, Drew, and I know you do have to mow your lawn early. Did you want to hear from Jim?
Of course I do.
You have to. Jim from Florida.
Hey, John and Drew, it's Jim from Florida. Just calling regarding the Aldrati case. It was a great interview with Barbara and Drew. They certainly have a lot of evidence to stand on. And it's really troubling that not all the facts were released of the original case, especially that there were no prowlers in the area and the issues that he had. And I was just wondering, what were the circumstances? I mean, they're obvious, but what were the circumstances? Why his Mr. Sharp's firearms were taken away from him, number one. And number two, remember, he called on the phone and said that he had a .45 that his grandfather gave him, and he wasn't really sure, what the law or procedure or something like that was around it. But we'll be praying for the Aldrati family, and we thank them for their service, not only Drew and Salvatore, but Barb and their family for all that they have done for the sake of law enforcement, being law enforcement family. God bless them. Bye.
Well, first of all, I wanted to compliment you on your use of the word prowler. You're correct when you do not characterize them as burglars. And as much as I try to differentiate robbers from burglars, I gave up on trying to inform anyone on what a prowler was. So thank you for knowing the difference. His firearms had been taken away from him because he had a very, very long history of mentally unstable behavior. His ex-wife had documented many occasions in which the law, judges, and other people had adjudicated him unfit. They had confiscated his weapons, which is kind of a huge deal for a veteran. And that's why he didn't have his guns. The gun that he did have was a toy or a replica that was very, very close to an actual firearm. And that's essentially what down with that. That's why he didn't have other guns. But, I guess thank God that he didn't have a real gun, because he might have been inspired to use it on those officers. Any comments on the Aldratis, Drew?
No, I still maintain it's this guy's behavior that caused the incident, not Corporal Aldrati. It's this guy's behavior. He called for help. He called people with guns for help. The dispatcher was divided in the attention, trying to talk on the radio, trying to listen to the caller. The caller slipped in vague terms that he had this stupid 45. But if he doesn't know enough not to go outside, if he doesn't know enough not to go confront armed people with a fake gun, then he's bad off, let alone the cops. You know, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I feel bad that he was killed, and I'm sure Salvatore does too. But I mean, like, you get what you pay for. Like, he was asking for that. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, how many times do we have to say it, John? This is the theme of the comm center. You don't bring a fake gun to a fucking gunfight.
Yet it happens so often. My last thought on it was something Barbara was, she was upset that the dispatcher maybe didn't do the best job in her opinion, or maybe in mine. I don't know enough. And she mentioned that he'd been disciplined. It's kind of hard for me, you know, because I really do feel for them and what they're going through. But of course, I'm a dispatcher, and we're a dispatcher show, and so I'm like, well, I'm gonna be mum on that, and I still want what's best for Sal, and I'm still hoping for vindication from them. I just wanted to mention that, like, so even if the dispatchers had gotten out the location alert that Charles Sharp was dangerous, even if they had gotten out a better description, it wouldn't have changed anything. The police officers were going to charge over there. They're going to go over there quick. They didn't have MDTs to look at, but they wouldn't have looked at them anyway. And not only that, but they were told what was going on, that there was an armed person outside of the house, and that's exactly what they found. The fact that they couldn't identify him as the homeowner is meaningless because he was out there causing the problem. So the homeowner, Charles Sharp, essentially called 911 on himself, and he should have, because he was out there being dangerous. And because the police responded to whoever was outside was dangerous, they responded correctly because he was. Now, we got the whole fake gun thing. We got the whole, it was the homeowner thing. That's how the story is being reshapen. But the truth is that he was dangerous and that they responded appropriately. And if they had been able to ID him on site as the homeowner, if they had said, "Are you Mr. Sharp?" and wasted all this time, we have no idea. That could have only put them in more danger. We don't know what he was capable of in that moment. And the gun could have also been real. You know, like, it could have radically turned out differently. So I don't think that dispatch is really to blame for anything that happened. And I think that sometimes you can't control every little thing. It's asking too much. But that's my last 2 cents on it. Thank you so much, Jim from Florida, for always having very excellent points. Folks, if you want more from the Comm Center, you can listen to us. Make sure you're hitting us up on Spotify. Make sure you're hitting us up on iTunes. Look for great stuff here on YouTube channel, now on X and various other platforms. Look for us on Instagram. Drew and I are going to be expanding our media presence. We're going to be taking over Instagram one account at a time until most accounts on Instagram are us. That is our goal. So, Drew, unless you have anything else, we're going to put you to bed so you can wake up in the morning to mow your lawn.
Yeah, I'm just going to sleep here.
All right, guys.
I one last question while we're headed out. Do you think, and let me know in the comments, does Sarah Boone forgive Salvatore Aldrade?
Very good question. All right, guys, I'm going to go out and eat some eggs in the car. Remember to carry the fire. We'll see you back here next week.